Well, let's get to our top story from Saturday's Times, and it's a big one. Sajid Javid has called for an inquiry into gender treatment for children. And who wants to have a go at this one?
So this is my story, yes. He is inquiring into gender treatment, and the health secretary is comparing the political fears over trans issues to the silence during the Rotherham scandal. So basically what's happening is there is hormone treatment being given to children under the age of 18. So I think they have 2,500 children, if I'm not mistaken, that would identify as trans, but less than 10% of those are actually receiving hormonal treatment. Right. And I think the real issue, what happens with a lot of people who are going through gender dysphoria, is if you start your gender transition after you've gone through puberty, it becomes much more difficult to pass as the gender that you're representing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what do you think about it? I just wonder because, you know, I couldn't be more sort of pro-trans. It's like being gay. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's who you are. It's your very essence, isn't it? But do you not wait until, let's say, adulthood or 18 for any kind of medical intervention, just in case that person changes their mind? Is that an argument?
Well, I don't think it's an argument because the cases of people changing their mind are extremely rare. And I have quite a few trans friends, and kids, you know, feel like they're other genders, you know, as soon as they can talk. I have a friend who transitioned at the age of 15, and when he was 4 years old, you know, he knew he was a boy, and it really has helped, the fact that his mother let him do this transition as a teenager because he passes.
I mean, do you think there is a sort of an age at which, like, is there a threshold, do you think, for treatment? Or you'd suggest it would be puberty, potentially, for if the case was compelling enough?
Well, I think that's the thing. They don't just give out hormones and start sexual reassignment to just any child. You know, this is after speaking to specialists and psychologists for years and years and years. So these aren't decisions that are taken lightly.
Yeah, so I guess Dana would argue, and those supportive of the availability of this medication, Nick, they would take the view that it's actually abusive not to let someone that's in the wrong body have treatment that reflects that.
Yeah, but the danger is it's abusive to let kids do that before they're able to understand. It says here the Court of Appeal upheld the right to give puberty blockers to under 16s if they're deemed capable of consenting. I don't really see how they can be deemed capable of making that decision at such a young age. I mean, current science is that we don't even develop a fully rational brain until we're 25. So
well, we're still waiting for you to kick in, aren't we?
Exactly. So how can you possibly make that decision under 16?
Well, wait a minute. I mean, you can be definitively gay at the age of 14, I would suggest. Yeah,
this is different because we all know that the famous cases like Keira Bell, once you've transitioned, it's very hard to go back, and that's just too much of a tragic situation to risk doing it. I also think, why has it gone up so much? These statistics went up. I hear that it's 5,500 children on the waiting list to transition, last I checked. It went up massively in lockdown. Why did it go up so much? Most people speculate it was because of access to media and kids being at home and being confused. I just think it's too dangerous to do it. I understand the argument against it. You do it too late, it's a problem. But it's just too dangerous to do it this amount of children. Are there suddenly that many trans people around? Or has the media and other influences just made it far more prevalent than it actually is?
Well, yes. I mean, here's the question, Dana. Is there a risk of misdiagnosis as well? So, for example, you know, lots of gay people I know are concerned that perhaps a little boy that's camp and is perhaps going to be gay will be misdiagnosed as a trans woman.
It has happened, but like I said, it is incredibly rare. And I think we have to be careful when we start interfering with people's transitions, because people start to take matters into their own hands. They start going to get surgeries in different places. I mean, obviously, this is a different instance when we're speaking about minors. But, you know, I've heard of trans people so frustrated with the gender that they were in. There's a really interesting story about Dominique Jackson from Pose, who literally tried to remove her own penis. Like, you know, you really have to be sensitive about these things. Yeah. If it was more, if it happened more often that people regretted these surgeries and these hormonal treatments, 100%, there would be an argument for that, but that's just not the case.
But how do we know how often it occurs? We only know about the ones we hear about. How do we know that not many people are regretting it that we never hear about?
Well, that's speculative.
Yeah, but
what do you mean if you don't hear about it? You just pointed to a case study.
Yeah, it's also speculative to say there's this many children that feel like they're in the wrong body. I mean,
how many trans people do you know?
Well, that's irrelevant to the answer.
It's completely relevant. How many trans people do you know?
I don't know. I haven't counted it.
Okay. Do you know any trans people that have ever regretted going through a transition? Ever? Even one.
Well, I wouldn't know enough trans people to know that.
Okay, so then I would say then it's a bit speculative considering.
Would the majority of those cases, and you're right to draw on personal experience, but wouldn't they have been people that transitioned after adulthood?
Well, like I told you, my friend, when I was growing up in high school, did actually transition and had a mastectomy at the age of 15, and then by the age of 18 had bottom surgery.
Yeah, and she would have, in your view, yes, exactly. He would have suffered when born in the wrong body, which is a woman's body. He would have suffered.
He lived as a boy from the time he was 8. He just would not accept his gender. Or the gender he was assigned at birth.
Fascinating conversation, which will, of course, rage on, no doubt. Let's head to Saturday's Telegraph now. Some ominous Russian military plans, Nick.
Yeah, Russia seeks to